Welcome to the Deep Six podcast, where we make a generational impact on you and yours. What we do here is explore a 6-point model into your health, your life, and your journey while you're here. So let's dive deep and help you thrive, not just survive. Hello, this is Dr. Lorenz at the Deep Six podcast, welcoming another wonderful guest, somebody exciting and different. And remember, this podcast with the Deep Six is about making an impact for your generation and others. So our guest today is really going to make a big influence. That's not just medical, and I'm excited to have him here. And I've known him for like 30 years, and is Dr. Bob Rahmanian. So welcome, Bob.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man, because you are somebody that is crazy busy. And you're going to think you're not, but you are, because you're all over this country usually.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for being here. But let me introduce you a bit so everybody knows your background a little bit, and
Sure.
then just get a little insight into this. And I'm not going to pick your brain today a lot about medicine, and the reason is that's boring, really. Even though the Deep Six podcast is really about a lot of healthcare things and that, but I'm really, really excited to kind of hear your side and stuff of things that are one of our 6-point models, because it's about having mind-body balance. But yeah. I really want to hear that stuff. But so Dr. Bob here, did they call you that, Dr. Bob?
They do, yeah. People have a hard time pronouncing my last name.
Which is not hard at all.
Yeah, I think that little H in there kind of throws everything off. So, but everyone calls me Dr. Bob.
Dr. Bob.
It seems to flow off the tongue pretty easily.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So, and we've known each other a long time.
Yes, we have.
A long time.
So
30 years, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was like probably.
Other than that bar fight we got into, and we just didn't talk for about 10 years, but yeah. No, joking.
We've had some bar incidents.
A lot of years, though.
Yeah.
A lot of years.
Yeah.
But
started out in residency, right?
Yeah. Our residency, residency.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, so Bob is a board certified emergency physician. He obtained his bachelor degree at Wayne State University here in Michigan in evolutionary biology. And then he received his Doctor of Osteopathy, his DO degree at Des Moines University. And he's done 20 plus years of experience, I believe, solely in emergency medicine, right? In Hawaii and Florida.
Yes.
Okay. And your Hawaii stuff's amazing. I love that. We'll have to talk about that a bit. And you also have vast experience in healthcare technology. You founded a telemedicine company in 2015 and grew his practice into a post-acute care space, and became the medical director of a continuous care retirement community in Fort Myers, Florida. Bob still works part-time as an emergency physician and currently serves as medical director at Harmony Care's Home Hospice, a nationwide home health and home hospice organization. And this is the big stuff. That's see, you're not busy at all, are you?
No, that's just my side gig.
It is. It kind of is. That's what people don't realize, that it's your side gig. So here's Bob's real stuff. So he's a self-taught musician, and very, very good musician at that. Can pull off anything at any time at will, even in my basement with my drums that are not even in tune. He's a music producer, multimedia artist. He played in many rock bands, and he was the owner of Ohm House Studio in Honolulu. And he still produces various forms of music and art under the moniker of Neurowax. So look up Neurowax on Instagram and follow Neurowax, because it's really cool, cutting edge stuff. I love it. And when he's not practicing medicine and producing art and jamming on his guitar and stuff like that, Bob stays active in mountain biking, dirt bikes, and various water sports like surfing, windsurfing, wake surfing, and even with me, motocross.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We still go out and ride.
That's right.
Which is fun stuff.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. Yeah.
So favorite riding partners for sure.
Oh,
it's hard to keep up with you.
Not well. Thank you, I guess. Pump my ego there, but it's just great to be outside and just smell some fuel and hear some loud noise, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Scare the birds.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had a good time a lot of years, and but thanks a lot for being here. And one of the biggest things. I think that's really cool, which we'll get into, but man, you've done it all.
Yeah. I'm kind of like a jack of all trades. I think that's kind of how I've always been. And I would say I'm not really a master of any of them. And that's okay.
Debatable.
Well, it's okay because I just I have a pretty short attention span. And so I move around and do a lot of different things that interest me. But to devote all my time and attention to just one thing, I feel like I get bored with that.
Yeah.
So I find things that interest me and I delve into them and kind of give them a try. And if I can excel at them a little bit, then I'll kind of go with it a little further. And if it's successful, then I'll just keep riding the wave.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of how I live my life.
Yeah, I love it. And then you take care of human beings and save lives as an ER doctor, and that just pays the bills.
Yeah, I mean, there was in college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I spent the first year of college just kind of dicking around and getting bad grades and just having enjoying the freedom of being out of the house and everything that comes with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then my dad is actually a physician. He's a urologist, retired urologist now. And, he kind of sat me down after my first semester and said, I'm spending a lot of money for you to go to college, and this is not the result that I'm looking for. I think you're a smart kid, and, if you think you can get into med school, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can do it, but I'm just throwing it out there. And
I love it.
Yeah, and that was enough for me to
piss you off.
Yeah, it kind of pissed me off. Yeah, and I was like, all right, well, if he doesn't think I can do it, I'll show him that I can.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the first step towards a career in medicine.
Yeah.
And then I moved back home and I went to Wayne State. So my first year was at Western Michigan.
Okay.
And that's where I was dicking around and having a good time. So I moved back home and just hit the books, spent the next 3.5 years in the library, just studying my ass off. And that's where I got my degree in evolutionary biology and did pretty well and got into med school, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And took it from there.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. A lot of people don't know this, but I have a very similar story with a similar father conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And part of it is, I think it's pretty typical, especially with guys or boys, I should say, or young men. And then, I know thyself now, but didn't realize at the time myself, a little ADD, a little, kind of, squirrel running around a tree a bit.
Sure.
And, but yes, messing around, getting into whatever in my first couple of years of college. And my dad had that talk with me and, he had faith in me. He was actually kind of just disappointed. And that was enough.
Same.
My brother was the dick. Excuse me, buddy. Yeah. He was the one that went, you ain't going to make it to med school. You're not going to make it through med school. Right. And I was like, that was my older brother. That was the motivating thing. I'm going to show him.
Yeah, I could see Freddie
doing that.
Needling you.
Yeah, yeah. He needled me for sure. And and I had to show him. So but when you get out of the house, I think, right? You get out of the house for the first time and it's one of those things. But how cool. What is actually, or what, because I haven't heard the term. That's a degree, evolutionary biology. What is that? What was that like?
Well, it was basically all the biology prerequisites. And then the last couple of years, just sort of focus on evolution and, evolution of plants and animals and human evolution. And that kind of shaped my worldview a little bit. I think, I was kind of lucky enough not to grow up in a household that was you have to be this religion, or my parents called themselves Muslims, but they weren't really practicing.
Yeah.
And so, I grew up not really having, any sort of allegiance to any religion. Yeah. And so when I went through evolutionary biology, it really sort of opened my eyes as to, the fact that we all come from the roots of, animals and, the human behavior is a lot rooted in evolution. And
Oh, so much.
yeah, so much.
So much.
And so, even now it just amazes me if I just, if there's a reason why someone's acting a certain way that's puzzling to me, if I go back to my evolutionary biology roots, I can usually explain it somehow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
And so, that's just, it was a good foundation for me, just sort of experiencing the world and all the craziness that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking at it through that lens, I think was helpful for me.
Oh yeah. Well, and I that's why I did ask you about this, because truly I haven't heard that term, in that degree. And it sounds very cool, because everything's, evolves in life, everything evolves and everything changes. And I've said this before, and not too long ago, about how I always like to be married to my questions, not my answers, because I think your mind opens up and you can think broader and, learn more and you absorb more, and that's along that lines, the evolutionary stuff. So,
Sure.
I love that. And medicine's evolved. I mean,
Absolutely.
in our practice, our practice of this, 6-point model, the deep six is a 6-point model of this foundation of, systems that build a foundation of your health, between genetics and hormones and gut and toxins and mind body connection, and then, structural issues, and how, that is an evolution of aging and of life. And it kind of goes along that same mindset. So that's why when I got your bio or your CV, I'm like, hey, I didn't know that about you. That's really cool.
So you guys don't use leeches anymore?
Well, hey, by the way, it might not be a bad solution to some of the things comparatively.
We do still use them, actually.
Yeah,
things,
exactly.
Yeah.
So listen, one thing I always like to start the podcast with a little quote, and they're all new. And so what it means to you or what it makes you think of. Okay. And this is a quote by someone unknown, but it is: everything you want is on the opposite side of fear. What does that kind of mean to you, or what does that make you think of?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times we're our own worst enemies, with regards to the unknown. There's a lot of things that we think that we want to do in our lifetimes, and we put up these barriers within ourselves and in front of ourselves because we're afraid. We're afraid of the unknown, and I see it in a lot of family members. I see it in a lot of friends. I see it in my patients. And if you look at it, it really not much matters in the world. It's just like you got your family, and you got your loved ones, and beyond that, whatever you do, that's not really going to change your relationships between your family and your loved ones. And if you want to try something new, or if you feel like you want to branch out, I think that fear is one of the first barriers that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
And everybody has that. I mean, I won't say that I don't have that. I mean,
we all do.
Yeah. So I think it's just for some, the barrier is insurmountable.
Yeah.
And they just a lot of people just kind of do the same thing for their whole life because
of living in fear.
They're living in fear, or they don't want to change things up because what if what if something happens? What if I can't do this anymore? I can't do that anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's so profound. So true. So true. It makes me think of too, and when I read this quote and why I like it is it makes me think of very similarly, like basically all life is avoiding, typically, shouldn't be by the way, but it's always, deep rooted in avoiding fear or pain.
Sure.
And
pain is a very strong negative influence on learning.
Right.
So if you want to learn how not to do something or never want to do it again, just add some pain in the beginning, and you'll never do that again.
Right. Yeah. You pump the brakes and be like, hey, I'm done with that. Yeah. Right. But it's so funny because a lot of times it's in your head though, too. It's the fear based of like what the pain might be or the consequence. Yet, on the other side, it's gosh, man, if I could get through this, or if I could, start that new job, or if I could, just lose 10 pounds, or if I could, you know, bandage or help that relationship with my friend or my family, you know, but there's something there that holds you back.
Yeah. One of my mentors in medicine, is a guy, he was one of our attendings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's not around. He's still alive, but he's not around right now. But anyway, he said something really profound to me once, and it was so off the cuff. I could tell he had just made it up on the fly.
Yeah.
But it impacted me for a long time. Still does. We were talking about a case. I can't remember the details, but it was a difficult patient who had a problem that. The problem was bigger in his own mind than it was physically, and it was causing him a lot of problems. And he said to me, behind every disease, there's a mind, and behind every mind, there's some disease. And after like 10 seconds, we thought about it. We both started laughing because it was so profound, because it's true that, every patient that you see that comes in the door, they're struggling with something that they want you to help them fix. And behind that struggle, there's some kind of emotional attachment, or there's some kind of baggage that they're bringing along that you, as a clinician, need to identify and try to unwind in the process of fixing their physical problem, because a lot of people just are emotionally bound to their physical problems, right?
They become the disease.
They become the disease, yeah. And then the flip side of it is, behind every mind, there's some disease. So it's like, it's not true for everybody. Not everyone's a guru, like sitting on top of a mountain somewhere, but, we all have our struggles. We all have our fears. We all have our issues that we need to overcome. And so, the best clinicians, I feel like, are the ones who can identify those pathologies.
Yeah.
And help their patients sort of navigate across them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, this is huge because it's so big. Almost like you said, in my practice and in medicine, gosh, you can almost think of almost every single patient. There's some part of this. Some of it's really, really influential and strong, and some is, minor. But I, unfortunately, because of what we do in a functional medicine practice and at Longevity Health Institute, we are seeing a lot of chronic disease, and you've lived it in the hospital and hospice care and in ER and stuff, but it becomes innate with chronic disease, you can become the disease. Yet you really, when you think about it, like you said, what really matters in life, when you really break it down, is like, loving others, loved ones, your family, and making sure you got oxygen, right. And maybe water, but we make it very complicated,
We can, yes.
We can, for sure. And the reality is, the mind, and I said this before in another podcast, you got to be really careful what you have between your two ears, because it's the biggest and most conversation you'll ever have in your life.
Sure.
And, from quantumly, and the reality of it is that can influence so much. And sadly, in the practice, I see this. I see it a lot where, they've become that. There's a book, and I can't recall the writer, but the book's called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know if you ever heard that book. It's unbelievable. I read it, and it's how, traumas, micro traumas,
sure,
big traumas too, but even micro ones, how we played them over and over in our head from childhood or teenage years or, young adulthood.
Sure.
And it imprints, and it can become like, so solidified that it turns into some form of a disease or what we think is a disease.
Sure.
And it's crazy.
Yeah, they become sort of like train tracks in your psyche, where if you have an issue, it can start riding the train track of whatever kind of trauma that you've had.
Yeah.
And it just it's hard to remove it off those tracks.
Yeah.
And so, if it's like a physical trauma, for example, some people get chronic pain issues because they experience such strong emotions especially during the first, several days when it has happened.
Right.
And they get these little mini PTSDs, and then they become emotional about it and attached to it. And it's hard to unwind that. I mean, I'm interested to know how you do it. How do you approach that?
Well, it's I'm no expert in this, but I'm expert enough to know this, that it's a key part to health, and it's a key part to your overall foundation. And we all have traumas. And by the way, they don't have to be measured, because it's really, the measurement is inside.
Sure.
I mean, it's, so somebody else could, outside subjectively go, that wasn't a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal. But to you, how it imprinted you in that moment and your perspective, it's major. So I always say, though, this is the only expertise I have on this. I recognize it. We send patients in the right direction, whether it's simply as a counselor or a health coach, to a psychologist, to a psychiatrist, which usually is last resort. But I love things like EMDR, which is a rapid eye movement intervention for trauma, for PTSD and traumas. But I always say the best gift a person can give themselves, because they can only do it, is counseling. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want to call it, by who, whatever.
Behavioral therapy.
It's just, I think it's so key. And even if they're small T's, small traumas, I think it's so critical, because it really brings true health. I really believe that. And I think if you're, whether it's ego, which, we all have, is when you think you don't need it, you probably need it more than you, it might be paramount on the 6-point model,
Sure.
But that's my expertise in it. I know where to direct people to. And that's usually how we handle it.
Yeah. I mean, the hard part is like, counselors are people too, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you find the right match for somebody?
It's an art.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's usually not one.
Right.
It may take opening 10 doors. By the way, one door could simply be just, a book, and it was really powerful to you, that somebody recommended, or it could be a podcast, or it could be, doesn't have to, but just getting help and recognizing it and putting the ego aside, is just so key, because the biggest part is people don't seek help. That's what I notice.
Yeah.
It's really obvious. And, in our practice, for instance, when we approach somebody on that, like, grid, if you will, that health foundation of the 6-point model, one of the things is that, we can help something like a hormone, and we can give them dietary advice and lifestyle advice or whatever, but they have to walk out that door and seek, well, I should say it this way, check their ego, because it's, and wow, I think I could get some benefit from this, talking to somebody or reading something, or, it's evolving, really.
Sure. What is your experience with flow states and recommending flow states to patients, depending on what they can do? Like, do you know what I'm talking about with flow states? Like, let's say you're an athlete.
Yeah.
And you're a tennis player, and when you're hitting a rally with someone, you're not thinking about anything else other than where are my feet? Like, you're not even thinking of that. You're just, your mind and your body is transcending time and space, and you're just flowing in the moment. And I find
I love
that is an addictive thing. I think that's therapeutic.
100%.
I think it's almost like a medicinal therapeutic.
For sure.
I don't really know what the pharmacology is behind flow states, but
and
there's many ways to achieve that. Through creative outlets, or through, active activities and things. But I feel like the patients that I see that don't regularly go through some kind of flow state are the ones that have the most emotional baggage, anxiety, and depression, and things like that.
You don't realize this, but I'm in a flow state with you often.
We are in flow states together. Yes.
Do you know when?
Yeah, when we go biking.
Yeah,
totally.
So Dr. Bob and I mountain bike often, and when the weather's good, here in Michigan, usually spring to late fall. And besides motocross and trail riding and stuff, But I do, yeah. Speaking of that, and there's other things with exercise, any form of biking. For me, it's really good with, like, if I'm moving I could be hiking, by the way. I could just be out on a hike, but something movement, nature, to me, that's what really resonates.
Sure.
And it is exactly how you explained. But I find myself mountain biking. It's like I can't, like 3-4 miles went away. I was like, nothing. I wasn't even working hard. I was, but I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like a reset button.
Yeah.
Your ego, your psyche.
Oh, yeah.
And there's ways to achieve it. I mean, there's business people that, go into flow states when they're talking to their employees or whatever, there's so many ways to achieve it, more than I can contemplate. But I feel like the people that don't ever go through a flow state or go for months without going into a flow state are the ones that are harder to treat.
Yeah. And might really be suffering.
Yeah.
Because it could even be, I mean, now that you're saying it like this, which is interesting, is that just because of lifestyle stuff, like they may have something that helps them and they whether they recognize it or not, that they get into flow state.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it could be like playing an instrument, or it could be riding a bike, or, you name it, you know?
Yep.
But because life, their job, their family, whatever, takes them away, and all of a sudden they're out of it for a month.
Yeah.
It's like shit builds up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
like clogging the flow.
Yeah.
Chi.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to unclog the chi with some flow.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's so profound. I love that. That's so cool. So, and so true. So true. Well, let me ask you a couple things, and just because they usually I find it very interesting when I ask these questions to guests, because they're all very different, you know what I mean? But, I got to ask this just because your medical journey, and you kind of touched upon this, but what do you feel like really deeply got you into your medical journey? Like, why did you go into medicine? Actually, and why did you pick ER too? I'm curious about that.
It's going to sound weird, but I had an uncle visit me once when I was probably 8 or 9, and he was in his probably mid-20s, and I think he was in college, and he was taking some kind of anatomy class, and he captured a frog, and he dissected it in front of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He pithed the brain with a needle, so he anesthetized the frog so it was paralyzed.
Jeez.
Put it on this rock and filleted the belly open and showed me all the organs.
Now, was this a micro trauma or a big trauma? I'm kidding.
At the time it wasn't a trauma.
No, I'm kidding.
I feel like it should have been, but it wasn't.
Right.
I just felt like that was so good, cool.
Yeah.
And it was totally cruel and totally not appropriate, I guess, looking back.
Right.
But that made an impact on me. Like, I was like, that is really neat.
Yeah.
And since that time, like the sight of blood and that kind of stuff, it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. I guess I had sort of an angst sort of component growing up, that I didn't want to do anything that my dad was doing. Anything my dad was doing, I wanted to do the opposite. Anything he told me, I wanted to do the opposite.
This must be the sons of doctors.
I think so. I kind of was spoiled growing up, I think, and for what it was, doesn't matter. But I felt like I was interested. I felt like I could do it, but I just I didn't want to please my dad.
Yeah.
And then I got that challenge from him, and he said he would pay for my medical school. I was like, damn, that's a lot of money.
Huge, yeah.
Imagine going through medical school and coming out the other end and not owing any money. I was like, shit, if I could do that.
$250,000.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, man, that's a great opportunity. I was at least not stupid to turn that down.
Right.
I was stupid in many other things, but that one I woke up and I saw the light. So I went for it, and the more I learned, the more interested I was. Some things like organic chemistry and things like those are grueling for me.
Yeah.
The further you get away from the actual human body and you get into the minutia, I lost a little bit of interest. But gross anatomy and psychiatry and physiology, things like that. I was like, wow, this is
Right.
fucking awesome.
Right,
I
right,
loved
right,
it.
right.
I loved it. I loved learning all about it.
Yeah.
And when I got into med school in Des Moines, Iowa, of all places, I got waitlisted at Michigan State, and so I was like, "Shit, this is the one school I got into. Do I really want to go to Iowa?" And I was like, "Well, I got in. I'm just gonna go." And
It's a pit stop.
yeah. And I met some really cool guys. We became good friends. They were really smart, and we ended up just doing all of our classes, like getting the notes after class, sort of, and skipping classes and playing basketball and smoking weed and just just having a good time. And I still did really well in medical school, just being around these guys because they knew that when there was a time to crunch. So these guys, I would crunch with them. I learned a lot from them, and it was a really good experience.
Yeah. No, I know. I reflect on my medical school. I can't believe I'm saying this because I went to medical school in Missouri, and the same kind of thing, where great guys, great, memories, people I probably wouldn't have hung with much.
Yeah.
They were cerebrally definitely above me, but I kind of loved as I got into the school, kind of like you, I started to love the learning.
Yeah.
And these guys were, we had a good time too, but it was also like, hey, this week we got to really crunch.
Right.
And then, then we go into St. Louis and go to a rock show.
Yeah.
That was our hey, we passed all those. We're going out of town,
Yep,
but,
sure.
What about ER? What kind of got you?
Yeah. So
picking that?
I was gunning for urology. Actually, I was going to take
And you didn't want to be your dad.
I know, right? I was like, man, I'm dealing with enough dicks in my life. It's like I got to spend the rest of my life dealing with old men's dicks.
Yeah.
That was part of it, actually. But I felt like as I was getting a little older, I started getting into so many different things, and I looked at my dad and saw his schedule, and I got turned off. Actually, I took a year of I started a general surgery residency.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
After internship. And I was gunning for urology, and about 3 months into the residency, I was like, man, I don't see an end to this. Like, even after this is done, then I'm going to be my dad. And my dad is the guy who would leave the house at 6:30 in the morning and come home at 7:30 at night and eat dinner and go to bed. And he had no life. Like, that was his whole thing was, being a doctor, making money, saving money, being a doctor, making money, saving money. And it's just like, God, there's so many things that interest me. Like, I don't want to do that. And so I was, going back and reviewing all the other electives that I had taken. And I was like, man, it was fun being in the ER. Yeah. Those guys were cool. They all had other stuff. They were driving Jeeps, and they were, going on trips and doing cool adventure stuff. And I'm
playing sports.
Yeah. I'm like, these guys are cool. Like, I want to be like them, I want to have a life outside of work. I don't want to own a business. I want to punch in and punch out and do my thing. Yeah. And that's kind of why I chose that field.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's funny because that's how we met. We met in the ER. We were first year residents together, and I was doing a dual family practice ER residency, and then ended up just obviously doing family practice, and got out of ER. And I loved ER. There were so many things I loved about ER. In fact, if you want a quick reward, which for me I realized, like, knowing thyself, it was a dopamine hit. I mean, you save a life, you make a really big impact. I mean,
instant gratification.
Oh, it was like, and you just feel like, how awesome, but also you felt like the shit. You felt like, oh, this is awesome, man. And of course you're doing a good deed, and your people are appreciating it and all that. For me, it was funny is punch in, punch out. I had little kids, and I was starting a family, and I was married, and it was like bills and, debt and stuff like that. And I would get gut wrenching nausea and like driving to the ER when my family was going to like Easter. or to like Christmas, like when I had to like, cause of our shift work, shift work.
You have to take the hits.
Yeah. And so that's one of my big things why I got out of ER. I loved ER. I love procedures. That's why I still in the office do procedures.
Yeah.
There's certain things that we do with, like PRP and stem cell and exomes and IV stuff. And, but literally it was like, that was the thing. And I was like you, though. It was a lot of fun, and these are cool dudes, and we're going to have fun. And that's why we had a good time and probably clicked, and how rewarding. So
it was sad to see you go family practice.
Go to the other side.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is this, I wimped out, because the reality of it is this, I was just like you in the sense of, I am not going to be my father. And my father was a GP, sports med, back in the time too, but like GP, did physical therapy, stuff like that. Yeah. I was not going to be him. And so then I realized that, I like seeing people. I like talking to people, dealing with people, the relationship and all that stuff. Yeah. And then, hey, he's already got a business going. And this guy, from all intents and purposes, is getting older. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, I could just join him and,
Sure.
And
it makes sense for you.
It did.
For sure.
It made sense. And really, I'm so grateful for it, even though we only did that for 2 years, because it was really, really tough to work for family.
Yeah.
Work for my dad and be in his business. It was really hard. It was time for me to go for many reasons. And, but it was such a great, like, oh, okay, I can do this and I like this. And, a little bit, not so much, but 9 to 5. And so I could still have my fun and shape my own, my own life. But yeah, very similar though, experience, very similar.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Okay. I want to get into this just a little bit, because, there's so many great things to kind of talk to you about, which is kind of crazy, because we hang out and see each other and do social stuff and some of the stuff I'm just learning now. That's isn't that funny how that happens? But, tell me, about your hobbies and leisure, how they create fulfillment, but also how they create like balance in your life. And, you're probably, to a jealous side here. Like I'm like, cause I have hobbies and I have interests and all that, but man, you rock it. like you really, embrace that. And honestly, you're so talented in so many ways. So tell me though, some of your hobbies, some of your interests, and kind of how that fulfills you.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I've always been, sort of the creative type. My mom was a painter, actually.
Oh, cool.
She was pregnant with me. She had to be in bed for a certain period of time, at the tail end of her pregnancy. And, she was a drawer and, ended up making all these beautiful paintings, which we still have.
Really?
Yeah.
While she was pregnant with you?
While she was pregnant with me.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so, growing up, she taught me how to draw, and she would tell me the stories of how, the doctor told her that she had to be off of her feet, and how she would paint all the time. And she felt like that she was transferring that to me in vitro.
Right. Well,
in utero, I should say.
Right. In utero. Yeah. But I mean, that's what I was thinking right away.
Yeah. Maybe there's something to it. So I think I got that from her, sort of the creative bug, and I didn't really know how to channel it or harness it, other than just drawing funny pictures for my friends and making them laugh.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started getting into music. I've always been into music, just growing up in the Detroit area. You're steeped in so many different types of musical genres and stuff. So I've always been a huge fan of music. I've been a fan of technology and sort of trying to marry the two together. And I used to make little videos for my friends back in the day, and I didn't have money.
You made a video of our snowboard trip once.
Yeah.
Remember that? Back in the day where the camcorder was like the kind you held on your shoulder.
I was the original GoPro. Before there was
and
GoPros.
The GoPro was pretty damn big.
Yeah. So I took a camcorder, with the tape in it. Yeah. I put it in my backpack, and I bought one of those spy cameras that you put like in a teddy bear to check on the babysitter.
I remember you showed up. Where were we? We were in Colorado or something.
No, we were in Tahoe.
Tahoe. That's right. Lake Tahoe.
and I drilled a hole in my helmet, and I put the camera in there, and I had the camera in my backpack, and so it was grainy, it was terrible, but I got a bunch of footage, and then I'm like, all right, how am I going to edit this? So it's like I would take an old VCR, and I would attach the video camera to the VCR, and I'd hit record and play and pause, and I'd hit the play on the camera, and I'd get a little clip, and then I'd pause it, and like that's how I would edit back then, like because I didn't, couldn't do it with a computer or anything.
Right.
And so I've always been sort of figure out a workaround on a budget to try to achieve what you're trying to get.
Yeah.
And then when the feedback comes back from your friends, like, this is cool. How did you do this?
Dude, listen, you don't know this, I don't think. I still have the VCR tape.
Oh man, I'd love to see that.
I still have it because you made for the audience, you made a VCR tape of our Tahoe trip.
Yes.
On the mountain snowboarding, us and a few other buddies, all doctors.
Yep.
One's a radiologist now, the other one ER doctor. Yourself and myself.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm forgetting anybody.
Yep.
And the snowboard footage, and then you put music to it, and you put some
stupid back scene stuff.
Yeah,
where we were wrestling in the hotel.
I loved it. It was so great, and we were we were so young when I look back at that sometimes now. Yeah. And the funny thing was we were saving lives. We were in the ER doing stuff, helping people and doing great things. But you put that together, and I still have it.
Yeah. So that's kind of just like my personality in a nutshell. I like to create things. I like to show them to my friends and make them laugh, or that was the extent of it. And then I started playing guitar, bass guitar, and electric guitar late in high school and into college. And then my first band actually was in med school in Des Moines, Iowa. I got back in the day, there wasn't a Craigslist yet. So you would go to the music stores, and they'd have somebody would post on a cork board, looking for a guitarist or whatever. So you'd rip off the phone number and just like the way that we met people back then. It's just crazy, right?
Yeah, it's like, how did we even get together?
Yeah.
How did we figure it out? Right. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so weird. And you go through a bunch of duds to get to the gems, And so I met this kid who was in his early 20s who lived in a little shack of an apartment with some other guys, and he was a guitar player and a singer. And back then it was like the cool stuff was like the grunge and the Green Day and like the Soundgarden and that kind of stuff. So we wanted to be like a Green Day type band. And we were a 3-piece band named Fensky, and we started writing songs, and we started touring. Actually, we played some shows in downtown Des Moines, and then got on this like punk rock circuit and played in like other states around Iowa, and it was fun. It was a great time, in between going to med school.
I was just saying, a release.
Yeah, going to med school and being in a band. I thought I was so cool,
Dude, you were. Yeah, tell your kids. I'll tell them for you. But
it was just a cool time. And then when I left med school and moved back to Michigan to do my residency, I was telling my friend Nate, who was the singer of the band, I was like, we're gonna have to break up because I'm moving. He's like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna move with you. Okay. So he ends up moving to Michigan and working odd jobs. Yeah. And today he is actually a state representative of Sterling Heights community. His name's Nate Shannon.
No way.
Yeah.
Love it.
He really became an amazing person. Yeah. Like this little scrawny kid who, we used to smoke weed with and write songs with. Amazing. Probably doesn't want me to say that, but
yeah. We used to,
not anymore.
100% used to.
Yeah, not anymore. But Nate is now a state representative, and it's just it's crazy.
Wow, that's wild. See how the world works.
Yeah, it's nuts.
How he jumped on board your train, your party train, back to Michigan. Yeah. And how, that's.
So he's really made his family proud.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
And then I just kind of kept that sort of vibe going. Like we ended up living in a little house in Royal Oak together, and we started some other bands and played around a little bit. And then I got into like this rockabilly sort of punk rock style band. And that was the last band that I was in until I finished residency. Yeah. Then I moved to Hawaii.
Yeah. after that, yeah, you got too many stories. See, I mean, this is
Right.
this because I do want to touch upon something.
Yeah.
Is your Hawaii, what, 10, 15 years? How long?
11 years.
11
in
years.
Hawaii,
Yeah. So, an ER doctor there in Honolulu, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
And, wow, just what a cool life experience and, and difference there. Tell me just, I guess, this is such a great opportunity to ask you this, but was there a difference that you saw? Because I've been to Hawaii many times. I was fortunate enough, my family brought me there many times. I have friends there even still. Was there a different feel in the ER and in medicine and hospital stuff being in, Honolulu hospital ER versus, Michigan or Florida or wherever else you've been?
Absolutely. I think the first difference I noticed was how welcoming everyone was in my department, like the nurses and the other docs. Like it was a big family.
Yeah. And you're a haole.
I was a haole, right? Yeah, but like
you're not a local.
It's you can be a haole and you can and not absorb the culture and stay a haole.
Yeah.
Or you can absorb the culture and just be cool with people and you're immediately accepted. Yeah. I think it's just the vibe that you kind of carry with you. So, I think, it was my wife and I at the time. We didn't have any kids and just absorbed into the culture and, met a lot of people and, the patient population was very appreciative. There wasn't a lot of, demanding, type patients that sometimes you see on the mainland. Occasionally there were, but for the most part, it was a really nice experience. I really enjoyed working there. I'd probably still be there. The hospital I was working for filed Chapter 11, so that was kind of one of the reasons why we ended up moving.
Time to go.
And we had 2 kids in the meantimes, and it was getting harder for family to come visit us, and we needed more help, and we just felt like there was a confluence of events that felt like it was time to go.
Yeah.
So, but it was a great place to practice and just did well there. I did really well. We had a nice house overlooking the ocean. You could see whales jumping in the distance. It was really cool.
Gosh.
Learned how to surf. Became like a big, it wasn't good. I wasn't great at surfing. I mean, I was a longboarder. I wasn't one of those like scrawny shortboarder types, but enough to make me Jones.
And get flow state.
Yes, absolute flow state.
For sure.
Fast track to flow state with surfing. It's a little bit of a learning curve in the beginning. You get wrecked many times. The first 10 times I went out.
I've been there.
First 10 times I went out, I got my butt kicked. And, but it's that first wave that you catch by yourself, with your own paddling and your own timing, and you got up and you did it. From then, it was like you're hooked.
Yeah.
So it's like
I have a funny surfing story. I just have to share this because it's so funny. So, I had this big ego as a teenager, going out to Hawaii with my parents and fortunate enough that my dad would bring me out there and, longboard and, probably 2-3 foot waves and, nothing impressive. You know what I'm saying? What I'm getting at is this, I'm a Michigan, kid, but I thought in my head,
sure.
Like I'm a surfer. I'm like the real deal. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So the next
You're an
time,
athlete.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, But so next time we're there, and you know this because you're local, but there's a point called Cocoa Head.
Oh yeah.
And we go. My dad hires this local, from the hotel to take me out surfing on a much shorter board because I think I can do anything now.
Right.
And we swim out about a quarter mile off of Cocoa Head, which by the way, I was in my early 20s and it kicked my ass. I mean, talk about getting out so far in the ocean to get to where the break is at Cocoa Head.
Yeah.
And I got out there and these waves were, this is not even really considered a big wave, but like a 5-6 foot wave.
That's big enough.
Well, I got my ass kicked so bad. I was really scared. I was like, I was getting under, in the washing machine under, I was so beat up. When I went back, the Hawaiian guy says to me, I'll never forget this. He comes and says, "Hey, brother, I thought you said you could surf." And I was like, oh man, my ego took a hit that day, man.
Yeah.
It was real. That's the real deal.
You have to go into it knowing that you're not going to do well the first time.
Right.
And it's very rare that people do catch a wave.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Unless you're at Waikiki, you know, and they're
Yeah, well,
pushing
that's
those
where
12-foot boards.
Well,
you know.
that was me in the beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's kind of shifting gears here a little
Sure.
bit, but I think it's so cool, and you could share some with us, and thank you for, you know, for being so open, you know, and with your experiences and all that. Tell me one of your hardest life experiences, you know, that you may have gone through, and kind of, do you have gratitude about it, the experience, or would you have done something different, you know, or, you know, something like that?
Well, it's probably not going to sound amazing because I've had a pretty easy life. I haven't had a lot of hardship yet, knock on wood.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are still alive. You know, my loved ones, for the most part, are all alive. Lost a couple friends here and there. But I think one thing that kind of shaped me early on was when I was around eight or nine in the late 70s. My parents emigrated from Iran in the 60s when the Shah was in power. I don't know if you know the history of Iran.
A little bit. Yeah.
So Iran used to be like this metropolitan, cosmopolitan, sort of Paris-like, place in the Middle East, like the jewel of the Middle East. The Persian culture is very old, you know, the time of the Romans, and, you know, so the Persians are a very proud people, but, and my parents moved in the 60s to the States, and my dad was doing his residency in urology in Royal Oak, Beaumont. That's where I was born.
Okay.
And then in the late 70s, the Islamic imams and ayatollahs took over. There was that big revolution, right?
Okay.
And then they took those hostages, those American hostages. And at the time, I was just so ashamed of being Iranian. Like, you know, it was just, you know, I thought of myself as an American, like through and through. And this is, you know, my culture, right? And so there was, you know, it was hard for me to sort of experience the shame of being, you know, Iranian during that time when, you know, other kids would sort of make fun, or, you know, would, we lived close to the school right over the fence, and there was a baseball field. And so the big thing for the kids at that, you know, after school was to play baseball and to see if they could hit our house with a baseball. You know, so it's like, I always felt like we were kind of under attack because, like, you know, just because of our culture, right? And at the same time, I recognized how shitty our culture was, you know, at the same time. So there was a bit of a struggle for me to sort of see like how crazy those people were over there, and how like xenophobia and sort of bigotry, you know, in my own hometown also affected me too. So it's like, you know, it's like, I feel like I'm an American. Like you guys got the wrong guy here.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think it took a long time for me to sort of sort that out mentally.
Yeah.
But I feel like
that's strong stuff.
Yeah.
That's big
yeah.
stuff.
You know, you don't think of it in the beginning, and when you're going through it, you don't really think about like how it impacts you. But I think overall, it's probably a good experience for me, because I realized that I see a lot of people that are tied to their culture 100%. Like, you know, I am this, you know, for all the good and for all the bad. I don't care. I'm 100% whatever this is, you know, and I see some problems with that. Yeah. And so I think for me, it was interesting that I could see some of the issues in my own culture that were problematic. And I could also see issues within the culture that I was steeped in as a boy, in the American culture, that were problematic. And so it sort of helped me figure out that I don't have to be anything. I can just be wherever the hell I want to be.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. And you know, and not be married to humans. Not be married to any ideal or any culture, or you know, just kind of forge my own path.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a patient once said this to me. I'll never forget this guy, because you know, it wouldn't shock you. He's a musician, wise because of years, a lot of experience. And he sat in my office once, and I swear I remember this because when I walk into my office, my personal office where he's sitting, and he's playing the harmonica, like in a medical office. Like, who the hell does that? Yeah. This guy does that. He had it in his pocket. He's like playing. I go, hey, what's up? And I during some time in that conversation, that's why I remember it, is because that hit me, like that was unique. But and he was a musician. But anyway, he said to me, we're all humans.
Yeah,
we're all humans, man. And so many things are created from fear, like we were talking about earlier, and from ego, and in our conversation when he said that, or whatever we were talking about at the time, which I can't really recall, it was like, God, it's so simple.
Yeah.
But it's the fact. It really is the fact. And, that's the way I always look at life.
Sure.
Too, is that, these struggles and these political things and there's good and bad everywhere.
Sure.
Everywhere,
I take it one step further, is we're all animals.
Well, there you go.
We're all chimps.
Some of us
we're all just chimps.
Yeah, and some of us more than others.
Right. So a lot of us, we work out of our own amygdalas and our fear centers and
so true. So true.
Yeah,
so before we wrap it up, which I'm gonna wrap it up here in a minute, and again, can't tell you enough gratitude I have, because this has been awesome. In fact, I feel like we could go on for another hour, but let me ask you this, because share just a few things about NeuroWax. And the reason I bring that up is this. I know it's kind of new for you. Again, listeners out there, especially if you're artistic or creative or whatever, go to NeuroWax on Instagram. And it's just something you created, and man, you did some cool stuff. There's actually my dog Banksy, my love of my life, besides my wife, of course. In fact, she may argue that, but anyway, Banksy, my Frenchie, my dog, and you did an artistic, painting of him. And it's on NeuroWax because you put music to it and you put some AI
the
and
making of
video. Making. It's so cool, but I know you're just evolving this kind of organically and for fun, but gosh, I hope you're somehow going to turn a dime on it.
We'll see. I think, NeuroWax was sort of a name that I created when I was just doing music and producing my own music. And I over the years, I've created such a huge library of half-finished songs and just like all kinds of different styles, like, anything from reggae to cinematic to punk rock, whatever I felt like making, I would make. And a lot of times, this would be better if there was a string section, or this would be better with a really good vocalist. And so I just put it in these hard drive files. And a couple years ago, I got into Instagram. I thought, these people are making money just creating content,
doing nothing.
Yeah. And I'm like, I have all of this.
My kids taught me this, by the way.
Right. Me too. And I have all this music. I'm like, it would just go so much better with some visuals, just music for me just sort of hits harder when there's visuals with it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's instrumental music.
Yeah.
And so then I started doing like a lot of digital, like Photoshop creations and digital drawings and animations. And over the last couple of years, when COVID hit, and there was that time when we were locked down for a while, I started painting because I figured, like, I can draw, I can write music, I can play music, but this was always sort of a unknown to me. Like, I didn't know how to paint. So first painting I ever made was my own dog, and it's still hanging on my wall. It's really rudimentary painting, but
not really. I've seen it. It's
seen
nice.
It? Yeah?
It's nice. Yeah.
Thank you. But from there, just sort of learned as much as I could and absorbed as much as I could from just watching YouTube videos of people oil painting and acrylic painting and different mediums, and just investing in supplies and trying and erroring and, throwing things away and, starting over. And over time, I started getting it and figuring it out. And so now it's like a lot of the time I spend is just painting. I paint all the time. And
so therapeutic probably too.
It is that's a flow state right there. Painting is a total flow state for me. And so I'm a little addicted to it right now.
As your mother in utero.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So
I do believe you were theta imprinted in utero, but we'll talk about that
maybe,
next time.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a whole nother topic, but, yeah. So, that's kind of my focus right now is creating more art and, physical art that you can hang on the wall and look at. And, I'm doing this thing now where I'm trying to marry the physical art with virtual animation. So sometimes in my paintings, I'll put like a QR code in there.
And that is so cool.
Yeah. And that QR code, you hit it with your phone and then it takes the actual painting and the painting, becomes like a video on your phone of whatever you're looking at. Like, whatever it is can come to life and there's music to it and stuff. So it's like animated art.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love
and that's
it.
kind of,
you shared some of that with me like a year or two ago when you did. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I'm like, this is so cool. Cause what did I say to you? I said, I want you to do a QR code and take some, older woman or man.
Yeah.
And because of what I do, you know, with the 6-point model and, the deep six stuff and make them younger and make them, look like they're thriving, not just struggling in, in this really modern, music artistic way. And you're like, I'll do it easy. Yeah. I'm the one that's dragging my feet.
It's on my to-do list. I promise you.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
cool.
And I think, with the emergence of AI, it really has taken things to a whole new level because one of the barriers for me with getting into art and painting was just being able to come up with something that I could reference that was unique and original, and not somebody else's work. So I can take my own prompts now and I can, I have an idea in my head and I can start with that and create something that I can move into Photoshop and compose before I put any paint on a canvas. And so a lot of times my painting is really done digitally before I ever decide to do it onto a canvas.
Wow.
And, I think AI is really taking it to a new level. And a lot of people are haters of AI, but for me, I think it's just another tool. It's like
we're not going anywhere.
Right.
I think it's just to be an added tool, an added layer of benefits if you look at it that way.
Yeah, it's like, when the camera first came out, there was haters saying, this is ridiculous. This is this is not art.
Right.
But a lot of painters were taking pictures of stuff before they would paint them, right? So it's just another tool.
Yeah, cool. I love it. I love it. Well, Bob and Dr. Bob, thank you, dude, so much.
Yeah,
so much. This has been a lot of fun, and thanks for your vulnerability and your being open and talk about all this stuff. And we could talk a lot more. I'm sure you won't be, this won't be a first, or excuse me, it won't be a last. It is a first, but I really do appreciate you and what great insight. And, we're all about in our show, making a generational impact in you and yours. And what does that mean? It means like even the things you've shared, there's nuggets in there that I want to tell you thank you because it will mean to others. And that just is like seed to grow.
Yeah.
And I love that. So this is Dr. Lorenz with the Deep Six podcast. And I thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time here. I'm making a generational impact on you and yours.